Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to another episode of the Concession Stand, brought to you by the KB Radio Network. This is the review of the new coming of age musical period drama, The Color Purple, which was released in theaters on Christmas Day. This film stars Fantasia, Taraji P. Henson, Danielle Brooks, Coleman Domingo, Corey Hawkins, her, Haley Bailey, not Holly, Haley Bailey, and many, many more. This, of course, is based on the musical play, which is indeed based off of the film directed by Steven Spielberg in the 80s, which was an adaptation of Alice Walker's book, The Color Purple. This go around, of course, this is a musical adaptation of that film and book, and this was highly anticipated on a lot of people's calendars and hearts. And I'm a huge Color Purple fan. I love that movie. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. But this go around, it was a musical. And I've said it in the past that I'm not a big musical person. You know, I'll watch them for what they were or what they are, and it is what it is. But I'm not it's a musical and run to it. It's weird. It's weird that we have two musicals to come out in the last 2 weeks, really, with Wonka and now with The Color Purple, both from Warner Brothers. I wondered, why did Warner Brothers release two films pretty much in the same genre 2 weeks within each other, you know? And then in the middle of that, for better or worse, you had Aquaman, which is also from Warner Brothers. They released that just 3 days earlier in this film, and it's like, what are you doing? I don't understand. They're taking money. Well, not really taking money away, because I don't think too many people went to go see Aquaman. At least when I went to go see it, it was me and two other people in the theater. But for Color Purple, that wasn't the case. It was jam packed and sold out for a lot of screenings, and it was Christmas Day. This go around, this film is directed by Blitz the Ambassador, and this is his third film. I think I only seen one other film from him, and that was Black is King. But this is the first big budget production that he was in charge of. But Steven Spielberg wasn't too far away. He was credited as a producer on this film, as well as Oprah Winfrey and Quincy Jones, who all three parties were involved with the film adaptation from the I think it was 84 or 85. This film, the original film, came out. But this go around is, I didn't see the play. You know, if I was seeing the play, I probably had a greater appreciation. As much as I was anticipating this film, I wasn't really wowed by it. I thought I was gonna get something of a, I don't know, a spiritual experience going to see it, but I didn't have that feeling. It really was just kind of formulaic from the original, just add songs. And, you know, I wasn't expecting them to reinvent the wheel here, but I didn't really get the emotion that I got from watching the original film, which starred Whoopi Goldberg and Oprah Winfrey and Danny Glover. This had its moments, but overall, it wasn't super emotional. It didn't really grab me as much as the original did. With that being said, I did enjoy it. I did enjoy the telling of this story. In case you don't know, it's the story of Silly, a story of a lifelong struggle for this young woman living in the South during the early 1900s. And she has such a brutal story in the book and in the original film, and a little here, but we didn't, it wasn't really displayed like it was before. They kind of held a lot back here, as far as the brutality of what she went through as this woman who was just sold off by her quote unquote father to this tyrant of a husband known as Mister, who was portrayed by Carmen Domingo. That relationship didn't carry the same emotional weight as it did in the original film. Let's break down the actors and the actresses in this film, starting with the star Fantasia, who portrays Celie, and her performance. And when you make a film like this, somewhat of a remake, you you can't help but compare it to the original cast from the first film. It's and I tried not to, but I couldn't help but doing it. And I know it's not fair to these actors and actresses who were in this film, but I just couldn't help myself. But um I'm just gonna do it as far as a guideline so you can understand if you've seen the original. The the character of Celie in the first film, played by Whoopi Goldberg, was just a tortured soul who, you couldn't help but feel sorry for her. She just, the world just beat her down. And you felt it in her performance, in Whoopi Goldberg's performance in that film. This go around, we have Fantasia, who you do feel that she's a broken down woman. You feel some of that weight, but you didn't really feel the uh how can I describe it? The desperation to get out of her situation. As per Whoopi Goldberg's portrayal of this character in the original, you felt the desperation. You felt it in every scene that she was in. I didn't really feel it in this film, even though I did see what she was going through, but not to the degree that Whoopi Goldberg went through it in Steven Spielberg's film. But I think uh, Fantasia did a decent job. She did a real good job. It took a while for me to warm up to her in this role. Uh, Almost to the end, it was almost to the end that I really started to warm up to her portrayal as Celie. But once she got it going, uh, she found it. She found her voice, no pun intended, and she went with it. And I enjoyed it towards the end, but towards the beginning, it was kind of rough, probably because I was sitting there and trying to compare her to Whoopi Goldberg's performance, which I fully acknowledge isn't fair to her. But once I stopped seeing Whoopi Goldberg and start seeing her, it started to work. And I enjoyed her performance for the most part. Taraji P. Henson as Suge Avery, taking over for Margaret Avery, I believe, who portrayed her in the first film. Loved her. I loved her in this role. She had a certain flair, just this flair that Taraji P. Henson does in every film. She just has that it. And I loved it. I loved her portrayal. But the best portrayal, the best performance in this film, I would have to say goes to Danielle Brooks, who portrays Sophia, who originally was played by Oprah Winfrey in the Steven Spielberg film. And her performance, I did not see. I never went to the Oprah. I can't get her name out. Oprah Winfrey performance. I just saw Danielle Brooks' performance because she just was so charismatic, so strong, and she just owned Sophia. She owned that role, and awesome, awesome what she goes through. The the strong kind of independent spirit that she has, determined not to live like her mother lived, which is pretty much the situation that Silly was in, but she is determined not to live that life. And it ultimately comes back to bite her if you know the story. And she has to regroup from that. Now, later on in the film, she kind of bounces back. And this isn't her fault. I think this was more story written on the page problem, not her performance problem. But the way she kind of bounced back to who she originally was, it was kind of sudden, and it just didn't really get there for me. But as far as her performance, awesome. Carmen Domingo taking over for Danny Glover as Mister. Oh man, I love Carmen Domingo, but in this role, mm, Danny Glover was better. Danny Glover, you have to understand, people actually hated Danny Glover. Danny Glover, after The Color Purple in the 80s, he couldn't find a role because he played the role of Mr. So good, good by being menacing and bad, that nobody wanted to cast him in leading roles. He almost didn't get Lethal Weapon because Richard Donner, who directed Lethal Weapon, saw The Color Purple and did not want to cast him. And so he was that good in that role that people thought that's who he truly is as a person. And it was hard for him to get a role. But Carmen Domingo here, as much as I liked his performance, I didn't feel the menace that I felt with Danny Glover. When Danny Glover was on the screen, it was frightening, man. You was actually worried, scared for Whoopi Goldberg. It was like he was I don't know, a man-eating shark. You know what I'm saying? He was a cold-hearted villain in that movie. Here, Carmen Domingo's performance, I didn't feel like he was a villain. I just felt sorry for him, really, you know, because they gave him more of a backstory and why he is the way he is and why he acts the way he acts, and you know, made him somewhat of the sympathetic villain. And I didn't. I'm not gonna say I didn't appreciate it, but I just didn't want it in so many words. But I liked his performance. He did the best he could with that role. All the other performances were great. I enjoyed Corey Hawkins as Harpo. I enjoyed Bailey as the young Nettie, and everybody else. Even Luke Gossett Jr. pops up in here as the father of Old Mister, and I liked his performance. He has a scene in here which was Sting's scene stealing performance towards the end of the film. I loved his performance here, and Lou Gossett Jr. gotta be pushing 90, huh? He up there. He is up there. But I did like his performance in this film. Moving on to the, I guess, the big addition that separates it from the original, the music. The music in this film was fine. I like the musical numbers in this film. I didn't like the transition into the musical numbers. It wasn't organic. You know, in most musicals, and as I said before, I'm not a big musical person, but I have watched musicals. And I do have an idea of how musical numbers and performances kind of flow with the story. The musical numbers in this film, not all of them, but a few of them just didn't flow. It's like the scene stopped and then they went into a music, it turned into a music video, you know, and then it stopped. The musical numbers stopped, and then we went to another scene, and it was like, it just didn't quite fit in certain parts. Now, in other scenes, they flow, you know, it kind of just flowed with the movie. It didn't feel like somebody just broke out into song. And that's the feeling you get in some of these scenes with the music. And you know, when you watch a musical, it's just supposed to be part of the story, as opposed of you know just stopping. We have a conversation, then stop, and we start singing, and people show up out of the blue and start dancing. It just didn't flow right. I think it flowed better on stage. In a stage production that works, but I don't think it works on the big screen. The story is the story. It's pretty much the same. Well, not pretty much. It is the same story from the book and the original film. So none of that changed, uh, with the exception of the end. The end didn't change per se, but how we got to the end changed. That scene at the end, which was going back to the Steven Spielberg film. Uh, it was so emotional and so touching, and you couldn't help but cry when that scene happened. Uh, in this particular film, in this version, I didn't have that feeling. It wasn't emotional. It didn't have that same pop as the original. It felt like it just happened. You know what I'm saying? But in the original film, it took steps and it was earned. Here, it didn't really feel earned. I can't really put my thumb on it, but it just didn't have that same pop, and the film kind of suffers for that. But overall, I did enjoy this movie. I was really hoping, wishing, praying that this would turn out to be one of the best films of the year. Right now, it's not, but it is still a good film, and I think it's a worthy addition to the Color Purple lore. And I give the Color Purple, the musical, a letter grade of a B minus. It is a good film, really good film. Is it great? No, I wanted it to be great, but I got really good instead, and that's all right. That's all right. I'll take really good right about now. It felt good to watch it with a whole group of people in the theater, packed to the rafters. It's been a while since I've been in a packed theater like that, and a lot of people, everybody was enjoying it. We got some claps in there, we got some laughs in there. It was a movie going experience that was enjoyable. And so for that reason, I give it a B minus. It is an enjoyable film. But I would like to know: are you planning to check out The Color Purple this Christmas season, or have you seen The Color Purple, read the book, and you don't need to see the musical, or you're not into musicals? I would like to know. Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also contact the show on social media. Just search for the KB Radio Network, as well as YouTube. Search for the KB Radio Network channel, subscribe, and like this video if you don't mind. Also, don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, look, I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you, thank you, thank you for a wonderful year. You have supported this show, and from the beginning, a lot of you have supported this show from the very start, and I really do appreciate it. This has been a great year, the year of our Lord 2023, and this is the final review of 2023. I don't think anything else coming out in the next 3 or 4 days. If it is, it's gonna wait. It's just gonna have to wait. But this is the final review of the year, and hey man, this has been an awesome year. I really do appreciate y'all, from the bottom of my heart. Truly, truly, can't wait for next year. We have a lot to dive into next year. So we're not going anywhere. This isn't a goodbye speech. So chill out. But I just wanted to show my appreciation to all of you throughout this year for supporting this show and helping this show grow. Slowly but surely, we are growing and couldn't have done it without all of you. I want you all to know that I love you. Continue to love one another. And until we speak again, you all be blessed.